This week's episode is brought to you by Fairy Godmother Travel. Contact them for all your Disney-related travel needs. Send them an email at Communicore Weekly at fairygodmothertravel.com and tell them we sent you.
Communicore Weekly. Come on and get geeky with 5 around boats and 5-legged goats. Communicore Weekly. You might get some freaking. You waited all week. I'm sure you already know that it's the greatest online
Hello, and welcome to Communicore Weekly, the greatest online show and home of the world's first pair of independently born identical twins. I'm George.
And I'm Jeff. And I'm totally obsessed with going on Periscope lately, George.
Yeah, I know. It's weird.
I'm always on the Periscope.
It's like this weird voyeuristic thing. You want people to watch you.
Yeah, but it's watch me like do
reverse
random
voyeurism.
stuff, like eat macaroni.
Yeah.
or
Wait
wash
for
the
me.
dishes.
You know, you've done that several times.
I have, and people watch. It's really weird.
Yeah, yeah. What's fun is, though, when I get online and put the phone near the mic when we're on Skype and there's that 4-second delay. It really just
It's
messes
really
with
bizarre for me, but people seem to enjoy it. They really seem to enjoy it. But I usually Periscope when I'm in the park, so that's a good reason to follow me if you listen to the show. You can
definitely.
You can see live stuff from the parks, and we can interact and have a good time together. I can take you on rides.
Ooh.
Even you, George.
Ooh.
Well,
see, but sometimes I'm like asleep when you're at Disneyland.
That's true. That's true, because there is that time difference, and you're also older than me, so you go to sleep a little bit later.
Yeah, and all that's it's just a mess.
Yeah.
It's still a big mess. That's okay. Wait till I see a Dragon Con.
That's true. That's true. You're going to punch me right in the guts. Anyway, before I get hurt anymore, let's go to the history segment.
It's time for Disney History.
When we talk about dark rides, most cadets probably think of, the Haunted Mansion, or Pirates of the Caribbean, or something like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. And depending on who you talk to, the definition of a dark ride can vary quite a bit. It's not quite like the argument over theme park versus amusement park, but it's still hard to pinpoint the exact beginning of the dark ride, unless you go with a specific school of thought.
And as far as we're concerned, here at Communicore Weekly headquarters, because we have to have two headquarters.
We do. We have dual headquarters.
Yes, co-headquarters. That's it. So the dark ride can trace its roots to the 19th century with the addition of Old Mill or Tunnel of Love rides. You could also argue that some of the first dark rides are even the older scenic railways. Another school of thought is that the dark ride was invented in 1928 by Leon Cassidy. Now, let's board our Swanboat time machines and learn more about the dark rides.
Are we in them? Did we go back?
I don't know. I was waiting.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna
Weren't you going to do the music or something? We're on Wayne's World.
There we go. So now that we're back in time here, just like George mentioned, the Old Mill rides and scenic railways could be considered the descendants of the dark ride. In the latter part of the 19th century, we started to see Old Mills and Tunnel of Loves. They started popping up alongside gravity railroads. And there isn't an exact date for when Old Mill rides started to become popular, but in 1886, LaMarcus Thompson patented a design for a coaster he built at Coney Island that had dark tunnels with painted scenery. And scenic railways would become extremely popular in the next few decades at amusement parks across the United States.
Okay, so a scenic railway was a gravity coaster. It's one in which the riders would ascend to a high platform, and it held a car with benches. They would then ride down a series of hills or bumps. Then the cars would repeat the journey in the opposite direction. Thompson faced very stiff competition after the debut of his first switchback railroad, as they were called. And instead of creating higher and faster drops, he decided to add tunnels with lights and scenery, which were usually painted flats or, like fake rock formations.
The Great Depression would actually spell the end of the golden age of coasters, and there wouldn't be a revival until 1972. But more about that in a future episode. And if you're from the future, I hope you enjoyed that one. Now, the old mill rides and the tunnels of love, they were fairly popular during the same time, and they evolved in a very similar fashion. Some of the earliest incarnations were just two-person boats that floated through dark tunnels or passages, and sometimes they were called river caves due to the very obvious theme.
So, speaking of themes, the Tunnel of Love rides would often be themed in one of two ways. Either a darker and romantic, or usually just dark, a ride that allowed the couple to cuddle, or a spooky version that I would never ride that would offer an opportunity for the couple to hold on to each other during, well, that's a good reason to ride a scary ride.
Right?
Yeah, okay, so the couples would then hold on to each other during the ride. And the popularity of these rides were pretty high during the late 19th century, due more to the social stigmas about unmarried couples not having any physical contact in public.
The river cave rides would have, more theming, including some animatronic-like figures that would tell the stories of myths and legends or display scenes of other cultures around the world. So, these figures would be known as stunts in the amusement industry. And they had lots of styrofoam staglamites and stacolites. I always say them wrong. But the things hanging from the ceiling of caves and on the bottom of cave floors, those things. But most of these, they lost popularity in the 1950s as thrill rides kind of came into vogue.
So the old mill-style rides were originally made out of wood, which would then spring leaks over time. Wood and water don't really mix very well. And they became very expensive operations for a park to maintain, and it leads us to the next type of dark ride, which is usually what most amusement park enthusiasts think of. And it sort of started with the pretzel. So sort of switching my Disney metaphors, Dr. Grant Seeker, can you punch in Bridgeton, New Jersey, 1928?
What? Was that a pterodactyl? And an Animal Kingdom reference?
I know.
5 points to House Taylor. Anyway, so Leon Cassidy was looking for a cheaper alternative to the more expensive water-based rides, and with his partner, Marvin Rempfer, they hit on an idea. So Leon and Marvin took over the Tumbling Dam Park, which was a trolley park, and they added a merry-go-round, scooters, and a water slide. And they wanted to add an old mill ride, but the cost was prohibitive for the smaller park. So they started playing around with a Dodgem car, which what they called bumper cars back in the day, and eventually they had a dry version in which the Dodgem car followed a single electrical track.
The ride debuted as the Firefly, but it wasn't a very popular term or name, seeing as how many amusement parks were quite flammable, if you remember our episode of on Coney Island.
I was just going to say, it also wasn't popular amongst Fox executives, so they canceled it shortly afterward.
Ooh, I need to go watch it right now. So anyway, okay, no, I guess I'm going to watch that tonight. So, okay. So, can't go with Firefly, not a good choice. So the name was changed to The Pretzel after a patron remarked that he felt like he'd been bent into a pretzel after riding. An industry was born when Cassidy and Rempfer started the Pretzel Amusement Ride Company, very original name, guys, and began building pretzel rides for other amusement parks and fairs. The cars were designed to resemble the Model A Fords and had a 40-pound iron pretzel on the front to keep the cars from jumping the track.
Was it salted or unsalted?
Well, it depends, I guess, on how fast it went.
Oh, okay. Fair
the
enough.
more salt would add more weight.
I figured. Okay.
So
the pretzel ride that was produced beginning in 1929 would have 5 cars, 350 feet of track, and offered a 1.5-minute ride. The cost was $1,200, which in today's terms is about $17,000. So as the popularity grew, they offered different versions, including double-decker rides and including a chain lift. They also offered different themes as well, included the Haunted House, the Gold Nugget, Spookorama, Pirate's Den, Arabian Nights, Winter Wonderland, Orient Express, and one called A Laugh in the Dark with spinning cars.
So one of the innovations, the next innovations for the pretzel, or the Laugh in the Dark type rides, was the addition of a hinged bar system that the car would then ride over. This would activate a stunt. It's like something that would pop out of a barrel or from behind a flat, design. The stunts would gain popularity since they were easily added to existing Laugh in the Dark rides. Eventually, we would see skeletons, spear-wielding savages, and anything else that matched the theme of the ride. Animated Display Creators was a company known for making lifelike displays for stores. They would begin creating more ghoulish stunts.
So dark rides would continue with more pirates and jungle themes in the late 1960s and 70s, but the biggest change would be with the debut of Disneyland in 1955. Peter Pan's Flight, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and Snow White's Scary Adventures, they added a more theatrical sense and scenes to the classic dark ride formula. And there was also a level of quality with the artistry that hadn't been seen before. And of course, the opening of Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion basically signaled a brand new direction for the entire industry.
So Pirates really took advantage of a lot of the pirate-themed dark rides that had come before. Of course, with the addition of Mark Davis's brilliant character sketches to add another dimension. Pirates is still thought of, though, as the evolution of the earlier Old Mill and River cave rides. Not many attractions today, though, can duplicate the scope and artistry of Pirates of the Caribbean.
The Haunted Mansion really is a direct descendant of the Laugh in the Dark rides, but again on a scale that only a Hollywood company can recreate. The final graveyard scene actually offers the pop-up ghosts rather than the simple animatronic displays that harken back to the 40s and 50s. And of course, the mansion as a whole, with its elaborate Pepper's ghosts and special effects, is still a masterpiece that has never quite been surpassed yet.
So when you talk about dark rides, most people think of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride or a Laugh in the Dark type haunted house. But really, almost any ride that's enclosed in a building can be considered a dark ride. It's a Small World, Spaceship Earth, The Seas with Nemo and Friends, Test Track, and even the amazing and incredible Grand Fiesta Tour are all dark rides. But you can also have dark coasters like Space Mountain, Rock and Roller Coaster, Flight of Fear, and Mystery Mine. Toy Story Mania and the Ghost Blasters type attractions that you see at Knott's Camp Snoopy are examples of interactive dark rides.
Now, dark rides at theme and amusement parks have evolved over the past 100 years to include, some of the most groundbreaking and iconic rides. And, there's still a handful of older Laugh in the Dark and pretzel rides still out there, so you can still experience them today, including the Spookorama at Dino's Wonder Wheel Park in Coney Island. And actually, I think there's a few on Santa Monica Pier as well.
Oh, that's exciting. So there's got to be one near you.
There has to be. There absolutely has to be.
Especially with a lot of fairs and amusements or, traveling fairs or state fairs.
The Orange County Fair, actually, which takes place right by my house and is starting very soon, they actually have like 2 or 3 dark rides. I know they're super old, too.
So that might be kind of cool to see. But we would love to know what you guys think about dark rides. What do you think is the original dark ride, or do you have a favorite dark ride? Give us a call on the Communicore Weekly Goat line at 424-785-4628. That's 424-785-GOAT.
He's a nerd, he's a geek, but we all like to hear him speak. So listen up to the words from his speech. It's George's Book of the Week.
Okay, so I've got 3 books this week, and no, this is not going to be a 72-minute segment, Jeff, so don't worry. 3 books, all from the Disney Pixar film Inside Out. The books just sort of showed up at my house, so I was like, I got to review them. And they are kind of all for kids, which is okay, though, So
Perfect
the first...
for George reading level.
Because I can read them quick and look at the photos. I like them. Okay, so the first book is a picture book. It's called Inside Out, Sadly Ever After, by Elise Allen, illustrated by Daniel Holland. Sadly Ever After is a picture book, meaning that it's geared towards kids around the 1st grade that are starting to read books on their own, as well as for parents and caregivers that are starting to read to their younger kids. Sadly Ever After, I feel funny saying that, and you're like, oh, well, sadly. Sadly Ever After is a gorgeous book, which it should be, since Holland, the illustrator, was the set art director for the film. So it really has that feel of the movie. Sadly Ever After is the story of the emotions from the film with a focus on sadness. And the other emotions really want sadness to feel something other than, sadness. They recall some of their favorite memories of Riley, and with each memory, the different emotions give their spin on the memory to show how they each saw it differently. Each one starts out with a happy memory from Joy, and then each of the feelings describes how it really happened to them. So Sadly Ever After is a very charming book, and it coincides very well with the movie. And it's a great title for a youngling that might have some apprehension after seeing the film, or for creating some dialogue with a child that's struggling with emotions or with dealing with their own emotions. The next book is called Inside Out, the read-along storybook and CD. This one, again, is geared to 6 to 8-year-olds, or 68-year-olds, that's fine, and is basically a retelling of the story with a CD included. And kids, CDs are flat, shiny discs that are sort of like iTunes,
So
that you can carry
it's
around.
a Frisbee.
It's a Frisbee that you can listen to. Exactly.
How do you listen to the Frisbee? You just put it's like a shell you put next to your ear and you just...
Yes, you have to cram it into your iPhone. No, don't do that.
So please don't do that.
Okay, so kids that love the movie and want more of it are really going to like this one, especially if they can listen to the CD while they're reading the book. It's pretty straightforward, follows a story, but the artwork was created just for this book, so it doesn't quite look the same. Most kids, of course, though, they're not going to care. That's slightly different. The CD does have 14 minutes of audio on it. It includes sounds from the movie, including the actual voice cast. So we can get Sadness saying stuff for our ringtones. And I really don't want to mention this for the parents out there, but this is a CD that you could listen to in the car if the kids wanted to hear it over and over and over again.
Okay. Way to give them ideas.
Exactly, I didn't want to. So the last book is called Driven by Emotions, and it's a junior novelization of the film Inside Out. And it's written for 8 to 12-year-olds, and like Sadly Ever After, the book we first talked about, takes a look at the story from the 5 different emotions. And the novel is bookended by joy and sadness. So, their versions of the different story taking up most of the space. Makes sense since joy and sadness are there for the whole film, basically. It's interesting, I thought, to read the story from the points of view of disgust and fear and anger. And although it was the same story repeated 5 times, seeing it from the different perspectives, it sort of shows how different people see things different ways. Except for me and Jeff.
Yeah, we always see things the same exact way.
Always see the same way. All for Communicore Weekly.
Exactly.
So Driven by Emotions, it did get fairly repetitive since it was the same story told 5 different times. But there were a few other scenes in the book that weren't in the film that they go over. And I think, any tweens that, love the movie are still going to enjoy the book. And it's a good way to think about the film and all the ideas that were presented about feelings and relationships, especially for a child that might be dealing with, sadness or fear. They can see that they're not alone and that no matter what, their friends and loved ones, like Jeff and George, want to be with them regardless of their feelings. Well, unless they hate Communicore Weekly, then we don't.
But that's not possible, right?
That's true, it's not possible. Scientifically proven, it's not possible.
That's true. 9 out of 10 scientists agree that 10 scientists is wrong, and everybody loves Communicore Weekly.
You know it. So this week's 3 books were Sadly Ever After, Inside Out, the read-along storybook, and Driven by Emotions.
Sometimes it's a 1, sometimes it's a 2. When you gotta go, what you gonna do? It's a bathroom break. A bathroom break.
You guys, we have gotten a lot of emails from people about flushing on your own terms ever since we initially started talking about it. And it's really awesome, I think.
Yes.
Really cool. We're getting on that t-shirt, I promise. It's going to come eventually. But recently, we got an email from Cadet Kenneth C., who sent along a lovely photo from the Polynesian Resort's main lobby restroom. And what do we see in this photo? Well, we see fantastic rock work on the floors and the walls. We see very flattering lighting, 2 rolls of toilet paper to choose from, these great open spaces in the stall, and most importantly, a manual flush toilet. That's right. Long live the manual flush. You guys can continue flushing on your own terms. You just have to go to very specific restrooms, and we're okay with that.
The Communicore Weekly field guide to flushing on your own terms. Coming soon? Maybe?
Okay, maybe.
Okay.
Sometimes you might see it, sometimes you don't. Hey, look, what's that? It's a 5-legged goat.
Let's travel back to everyone's favorite full-day park, Disney's Animal Kingdom. And after such a long journey, we're going to take a rest on a lovely bench located in Harambe, in the African section of the park. Now, this bench that I'm speaking of is located near the Harambe Theater, and it's a very nice cement bench, and it's a great way to kick back and relax for a few minutes. But most guests don't even realize they're sitting on a bit of Harambe history, if you will. Written on the bench in these big bold letters, it says, Uhuru, 1961. Now, Uhuru is the Swahili word for freedom. So this bench is actually letting people know that the fictional town of Harambe obtained their freedom in the year 1961. Boom. Swahili lesson for the week, ladies and gentlemen.
I thought that was like a Star Trek reference.
Well,
Lieutenant Uhuru.
she's also, yes, the female from Star Trek. But if you actually watch Braveheart in Swahili, my favorite part is where Mel Gibson yells, Yahoo!
You have the Swahili edition?
Who doesn't? You don't have that?
So speaking who probably doesn't have it is this week's winner for the year
Nice
of
segue.
A Million or So Limited Time Cadets. Yay!
Hooray! Now, this week's prize is a Disneyland prize pack from Fairy Godmother Travel because, as you all know, July is the anniversary month of Disneyland, the 60th anniversary, the Diamond Anniversary. Excuse me. And this week's winner is Scott D. from South Dartmouth, Massachusetts.
Oh, that's awesome.
Congratulations, Scott.
Yes. And hopefully you will, take a photo and send it to us so we can post it on the Facebooks or the Twitters, or Jeff will Periscope you.
Exactly.
Or something like
and
that.
then be jealous of the prize that you got.
Yeah, probably very jealous. And if you want to get in on this action of getting a weekly prize, all you gotta do is email communicoreweekly@gmail.com with your name, your address, of course, we can mail it out to you, and your birthday, at least the month and the day, so that we can send you a pretty cool birthday surprise as well.
Heck
so
yes.
just email communicoreweekly@gmail.com and get the prize on.
Is that a new catchphrase? Get the prize on?
Get the
I'm
prize
not sure
on.
if that works.
It probably doesn't work.
Fine.
We could do
Yeah.
treat yourself.
Treat yourself was already taken, but we'll steal it.
We'll steal it anyway, so okay. Wow. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching and listening to another episode of Communicore Weekly.
Please, if you get a chance, give us a rating and a review on iTunes or leave a comment wherever you watch or listen to the show. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, we love those 9 stars. Again, email us at communicoreweekly@gmail.com, not only to enter the contest, but to say, hey, sup, Corey?
Sup, Corey. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/CommunicoreWeekly.
And follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and now Periscope. I'm at Imaginerding. He's at Jeff Heimbach.
And of course, you can always leave us a voicemail on the Communicore Weekly Hotline at 424-785-4628.
And you can get some really cool Communicore Weekly t-shirts by visiting communicoreweekly.spreadshirt.com.
And of course, if you want your cadet membership card or some stickers or something like that, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to Communicore Weekly, P.O. Box 432, Orange, California 92856.
And if you're looking for another way to support Communicore Weekly and making everyone's dreams come true, then head over to patreon.com/Communicore Weekly and see how you can help. For Jeff Heimbach, I'm George Taylor.
And for George Taylor, I'm Jeff Heimbach. Thanks so much for listening, guys and gals. We'll see you next time on Communicore Weekly, the greatest online show.
SEO what?